Hello, 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 and welcome back to the BFA Baby podcast. As always, I'm your host, Taylor Hartman, and welcome to another episode. If you're like, Taylor, if you're watching on YouTube and you're like, Taylor, that's a really dark frame, it's because it's cloudy outside and 7 p.m. Working the night shift tonight. We are drinking water on the podcast, so grab a drink, get something, just kind of chill out with me. We're gonna have sort of a serious conversation, but more of like a commentary, like open conversation type of conversation. So this is a really big episode where I want you to interact. I'll leave a question little in the show notes. You can do a little interaction. I want to hear your thoughts. So today I want to talk about the Balletcore aesthetic as well as the sexualization of children in dance and how those all kind of tie together. It's kind of an interesting conversation that I feel like I've been poking around with for a really long time, and I thought it would just be kind of something to open the door to see what everyone else is thinking about on the podcast. But first, you'll be listening to this in August. I think middle of August you'll be listening to this episode. But currently it is April 18th, 2024 when I'm filming this, and I just got out of our first tech rehearsal for spring dance concert. Woo! I am so excited. My costume for one of these dances is so cool. It's this huge tulle skirt and this pink corset and this red top and this crown. I'm like a Jack the Ripper era Barbie. Like moody, mysterious, like pinks and reds. It's like a moody Valentine's-y Barbie. It's so cool. I'm not actually Barbie, but like I'm a little bit Barbie. It's so fun. I have pink laces in my tap shoes. It's so much fun. So if you see me guzzling down my water, if you see or hear that, that's what I'm doing. I just got done dancing, so I am tired. It is my earliest tech night for the next week. It was just blocking, so we were there for like half an hour, but yeah, it was kind of a lot, kind of crazy, but it was a good day. So I had my fitting, I had tech, I got a coffee, I'm jazzed up. I'm gonna go work on a final project after this. I'm feeling jazzed the fuck up, dude. So let's just hop right into this conversation. I don't think I have anything else to add conversation before I get into it, but yeah, so, this is on Who What Wear. It's a fashion blog, and I want to talk about their definition of balletcore because I think they say it really well. So, although each aesthetic is vastly different in approach, their aim is the same, finding power and playing with personal style. It is something that balletcore does sublimely, as the trend manages to be all those things and more. While one might think this fashion aesthetic can be solely chopped up to clothing inspired by the ballet dance form, that's far from the truth. Ballet-inspired fashion has always been subversive in its own right, because ballet has always been the inflection point between many aspects of society, from high fashion to highbrow art to the highest echelons of society. No, please don't send me an ad. I want to read. To the highest echelons of society, it has continually held a place in history that should not be underestimated. We may now associate ballet as a high art form, but it has often existed at inflection points of political movements, acting as a mirror to display wider society's ideas around gender, sexuality, and beauty itself. So, yeah. So this whole balletcore thing, it's a lot of tulle, it's a lot of wraps and bows, and it's just kind of this like very hyper feminine ballerina silhouette. And I want to put this preface out right at the top of the episode. If you like the balletcore style, if you like really find yourself in the balletcore style, I'm here for it. I bet your outfit slays. I bet it looks great. I just have a few fundamental problems with it that I think together we could all fix so that we can all love the balletcore aesthetic together. So, but I mean, if this is your like vibe and this is how you want to dress, I'm not telling you to stop dressing like this. I'm just saying to potentially consider why you like dressing like this. But I mean, wear what you want. I'm not here to tell you what to do with your life. So, like I said, the Balletcore aesthetic is a lot of clean lines. It's blacks and whites and baby pinks and bows and tulle and lace and ribbon and all like traditionally very feminine things, which are all great in their own right. I love all of those things. However, the very notable Balletcore silhouette, I'm thinking of like a very specific outfit. Let me see if I can find one and kind of like visually describe it so we can get like, yeah, okay, here's a perfect example. So it's like she has a tulle top on with like wrap sleeves and a wrap skirt and leg warmers and like ballet flats. And the issue with my view on like this very on the nose Balletcore is that it really is reminiscent of children in ballet. And not to put down the ballet children, please keep introducing your kids to the arts, but with this like adult version of, you know, wearing these like very child-esque ballet style silhouettes, it kind of in my heart and in my brain leads to like the sexualization of like a child in ballet. Whereas I think as women dressing in a Balletcore aesthetic, wanting to catch that vibe, I think it would be more beneficial to lean into what more adult professional ballerinas wear. One, there's no sexualization of children, and two, it kind of also, it still encompasses like that femininity, that traditional femininity that I think a lot of Balletcore fans are looking for, but it also alludes to the strength and the athleticism of ballet. You know, I think when we stay really honed in on this like childlike tulle princess ballet vibe, you know, that's kind of where you get those mixed messages of like, oh, you know, it's ballet, it's frilly, but it's more than just tulle and bows and ribbons. And in a way, Balletcore not only is the sexualization of a young child's ballet outfit, you know, but it also, in a way, to me, as someone who's trained in ballet their whole life, as someone who is making this their profession, it kind of dumbs down what I've dedicated my life to, in a sense. Like, if this is what the outward world thinks of ballet and what ballet looks like, it is just very girly and light and fluffy, but in reality, ballet is taxing and athletic and strong and fierce and feminine, and it's feminine in all aspects, not just in the frilly girly aspect. And I think other ways that we could kind of, one, tune into the more strong side of ballet, and also kind of negating from making us look like children in ballet, like that fetishization, let me, hold on. I'm gonna get a Google, the fetishization? How do I say it? Can you say it? Pronunciation, please. Oh my gosh, okay.
Fetishization. Fetishization
of a childlike ballet atmosphere is a concern that I have with this whole Balletcore aesthetic, and I think leaning more into the adult ballet realm. Also, because with the adult ballet realm, we've seen high fashion brands already collaborate with like New York City Ballet, ABT, PNB. There's already a wave into fashion with the adult ballet realm, and we could just like skip over the childlike energy, because it just really makes me feel sticky and gross when I see these like wrap tops that are made for like keeping little itty bitty dancers warm when it's cold for Nutcracker season, but they're worn as like very low cut tops, and it's like a suggestive thing. And not to say that wearing a low cut is suggestive. Maybe you like that cut on yourself, that's fine. But it's when it's with the intent of being like, this is ballet, that's where I have a little bit of a problem with it. And you could say that I'm looking into it too far. You could say that I'm feeling too much into it, but like, as someone who has made this their life's work, and as someone who teaches young children and sees them in this type of clothes, to then see the like romanticization. I can't talk today. Well, I should not be filming a podcast, but it's okay. The romanticization. It's fine. Dude, don't, please. I do not need someone's gonna clip all the times I can't speak in this episode, and they're gonna, like, make a cut down. It's gonna be so embarrassing. No, but, like, to, like, romanticize a child is kind of, it's not even, like, a fetish thing. I mean, at some point, I think it could really lean into that when you get to the more, like, lingerie balletcore stuff. But, like, the romanticization of, like, a child's work is kind of a lot for me. Kind of a lot. And I think some ways that we could really lean into a different sense of adult balletcore is to, again, like I said, look into the professional ballet, you know, what they're wearing. So I'm going to pull up some outfits, and we're going to kind of talk about some key differences about what they look like, but also where they meet, because I think that traditional feminine vibe is still there, but you could also lean into the strength of it all. So the biggest thing I would say you can still keep that same silhouette, those straight lines, that clean cut, it's all there, but I think a really big, you know, like, step up would be to not even wear pink. Like, it might just be, like, the college world, but at least for me, like, I didn't wear pink to a ballet class until very recently for college. Like, we don't have to be in pink tights all the time, but, like, pink was, like, I kind of swore it off because I was in a black Leo and pink tight so much in high school. And there is more freedom when you are an adult professional ballet dancer to wear color, to wear pattern, to wear what you want. You know, obviously still keep that clean line. So I think incorporating more pattern, more color, less black, white, pink will kind of lean it more into the professional realm. There's also a lot of emphasis on layering. There's emphasis on layering with the current balletcore, and I think a continued emphasis on layering in the professional world can then again come from, you know, baggy and tight layers, not just all tight layers all around. Because again, you know, for little kids, you want to be able to see, like, are their arms nice and rounded? You know, you have those shrugs. You know, but when you're an adult and it's kind of more muscle memory, you can rely on being a little more layered. And that's also, like, a fashion dynamic, the dynamic between tight and a little baggier. That can be kind of some visual interest. Another thing that is really big is knit. Professional ballerinas are really into knit, and I know, like, crochet and knit fashion is really in right now. So work some knit into it. Just things that will kind of make it more expressive, and also adding these colors and these patterns and these layers and, like, the shape will also give you more self-expression, the way that these professional ballerinas can start to find expression in what they wear when they're no longer strictly under, like, a black leotard, pink tights, ballet shoes, dress code of, like, the school they grew up in, perhaps. And I think that making these really subtle changes, but still keeping the energy, you know, you still have the tight silhouette, you still have the sweetheart necklines, and you still have the slick hair, and maybe a bow in the hair, or, like, bows on the earrings, you know. You still have that sparkle, that feminine glam, but you're leaning into the expression and the strength of ballet, you know, the strength in picking out your own clothes, your own colors. Like, it's a very freeing thing the very first time you get to wear what you want to wear to a dance class. So I think comparing your balletcore inspirations to what a child might wear and what an adult ballerina might wear, I think that could kind of help you look at why you like balletcore when it is more child-leaning. And I think it really is that draw of that, like, traditional feminine lacy, you know, like, I get the draw of that. It's beautiful and I love it, but I do think that at a point it is romanticizing a child and a child's aesthetic. I mean, they don't even know that it's their aesthetic when they're kids because they're 5, but, like, I think it is kind of like, it's almost cosplaying being a 5-year-old ballerina when you can have all that femininity but also added strength and expression when gearing the same kind of outfit towards a more professional look. And I think that that's something that's really interesting. And with that, I kind of want to lead into something else on this topic, which is the sexualization of children in competition dance. And I kind of want to talk about it, how I've seen it, how I grew up in it. I want to talk about what it's like now and kind of things we can do to help protect our children as dance educators, as aspiring dance educators, as future dance parents, as directors, etc., etc. So I think a very obvious example to start with is dance moms. Funny enough, I know I don't talk a lot about dance moms, though I did just talk about it in the JoJo Siwa episode, so it feels very relevant, but I think a very, it's in the zeitgeist. We know about dance moms. There was that really early dance called electricity, and you have these girls that are like 6, 7, 8, and they're wearing bra tops and like briefs, and they have ruffles like on the like waist, and they're like shaking ass and like hitting like spread legs and like down on their knees, and it was like a very provocative dance for these young kids. And I think it was the very first time that like the greater public saw the way that kids were dancing in dance competitions. And I think it's a thing that's always been happening. And I think that comes with, also there was the fan dance. Oh my god, I literally cannot believe that they fucking aired this on national television. I will never get over this. The fans, they had like the fans and the feathers, and they put these children in like nude bra tops so it looked like they were like naked. I cannot believe that they literally did that and also put it on national television. Like, who let that air? Anyways, I digress. Dance Moms was the very first time that I think the general public really saw that the sexualization of children is something that was happening in competition dance. I think that it was something that was happening. Parents saw it, judges saw it, teachers set these dances. I think it was a thing that was very normalized in the industry. But Dance Moms being a national television show really brought people into like looking at it and being like, oh shit, that it really is happening. And I think the biggest thing is that it kind of raised some questions from the public. Why are we putting young kids on stage in these costumes? Why are we giving them dances, like dance moves that are kind of this like sexual, suggestive energy? Why are we playing like suggestive songs and that's what they're dancing to? And as much as I don't want to say this next thing, it was kind of, sex sells, right? And there's a really big like commercialization of like sexy commercial dancing. And it starts when you're kids. I mean, I remember being 7 years old and I had like a garter on like the thigh for one of my jazz dances, and I remember like parents were really upset about that, but I didn't know why. For me, it was just like a sparkly little part of my costume that I was wearing. It was a cute little like belt on my leg. It was like a thing, And, I had bra tops and briefs, and it was like a very competition thing. And I was, it's like you don't even think about it until you're older and you're like, oh my god, I would never put a child of mine in that situation, but here we are, I guess. And it's something that's very normalized, and I think it is because, in a way, sex sells. And that shock factor can really help your dance be memorable. And when your judges have been sitting at the table from 7 a.m. till like 3 in the morning the next morning judging, you want your dance to stand out in their head. So even if it is crude or suggestive or kind of jarring, it's memorable. And I think that the sexualization of children in competition dance, it is kind of that like all press is good press, bad press is good press type energy. I mean, that's why Dance Moms did it on so early. It got people talking about the show. It got people coming back to watch, It makes that dance stick in your brain. And I don't think that it is right. I don't think it should be like that. And I think that as current dance educators, as future dance educators, I think that we need to advocate for a safer, age-appropriate competition choreography, competition costumes for our children, and not to tell them, because, I mean, they're exposed to it, even if they're not doing the dances, they're going to see all these other dances happening. And I think, you know, making sure they're not sheltered, because it is a thing in the dance world that is just going to keep happening, and we're not going to fix it overnight. And, like, but we can protect the children that we teach and that we educate. And, you know, ensuring that our dancers' choreography is age appropriate, our costumes are age appropriate, and that we can win over with technique, with story, with performance, and we don't need that, like, weird level of, like, sex to, like, have, like, a lasting power. You know, and I think as dance educators, that's something that I'm really seeing us start to push forward with in the industry. As an educator, as a judge, you know, I think we're kind of slowly starting to get away from, you know, the really sexualization of dancers. I mean, obviously it still happens. It's always going to happen. But I think it's getting less and less. And I also think that that is akin to social media. You know, like, anyone can be online these days. You know, parents posting their kids. Kids can be online these days. I mean, like, kids are getting on the internet and getting us, like, starting a social media presence younger and younger and younger. And with that, you know, there's precautions you can take. You know, you can have a private account. You can request to follow, like, all those things. But, you know, it's one of those things that's, like, you never quite know who's watching. And I remember when I was, like, still competing but a little bit older, there was a big conversation about, like, pedophiles just coming into dance competitions and watching us dance. And this was in the area where we were kind of still doing that, like, scandalous, suggestive dancing. And, you know, you're getting a little older. You know, you're 9, 10, 11, 12. And, you know, I remember there was a big conversation about, like, who is watching our children dance. And, you know, you want to hope that it's just judges and it's fellow dance studios and it's fellow dancers and it's fellow dance parents. But at the end of that day, anyone could really walk into that convention center and be like, hey, I'm with my daughter, she's in the dressing room, and then go into the theater. And I think it is a really scary thing, and I do hope that in the future I mean, dude, I haven't been to a dance competition in ages. I haven't been to a traditional dance competition in a long time, but I hope that we're kind of starting to vet who is in the audience, and in some sort of way, maybe it's show an ID or, you know, show, like, proof of studio membership, you know, like, whatever that, I just hope that, like, in some way, shape, or form, there is a bit of a vet at that door. And, you know, I think it is a step that we are taking away from that shock factor. And something I say when I talk about this just with anyone is that shock is not talent. Talent beats shock every single time. If you put a girl on stage dancing to a fucking, like, Cardi B song, and she's, like, shaking ass, and she's in, like, the tiniest costume you've ever seen, and sure, she can get her leg up real high, but at that point, we're not focused on the dancing or the technique. We're like, you put a 9-year-old on stage in, like, less than a swimsuit. Let's talk about that. You know, but then if you put a 9-year-old on stage in perhaps a dress with some sparkle, and it's, like, beautiful, and she, again, they still have the same beautiful leg, you're more dialed into the technique and the performance rather than just being, like, absolutely gutted that there is, like, a borderline undressed child on your stage. And, you know, shock never beats talent. And that's how I lead my dances at all times. And, I mean, I wore my first pair of fishnets at, like, 7 years old, 5, 6, 7 years old. I think it was 7. And, you know, I was, like, getting whistled at. And I was, like, 7 years old in fishnets. And I was like, I don't get it because it's just a costume. And I think that there is also a barrier because kids don't understand that. You know, I didn't understand the significance of fishnets. I didn't understand the significance of the garter belt or the bra top or that time that they put us in, like, bra tops and, like, gloves that went up to, like, past our elbows, and, like, the, like, sensuality of that. You're not exposed to that. So, like, the kids just think it's a costume, and, you know, they don't realize that the moves that they're doing are suggestive. You know, they trust their dance teachers. They trust, like, that this is the right thing that they should be doing, when in reality, it's, whether they know it or not, it's putting those kids in danger. And like I said, with social media, these dance competitions post photos, they post videos, parents post photos and videos, you never know who's around, you never know who's in the audience, whether it's in real life or online, and I am grateful to see that this, like, hyper-sexualization of children is slowly fading away in the world of competition dance, and as dance educators, teachers, choreographers, whatever you want to call us, as future dance parents, perhaps. I will not be a future dance parent, but maybe you will be. I will not be a future parent, for that matter. But as anyone involved in the competition dance sphere at all, I think the best thing that we can do is stand up for our children, whether they are actually our children or our dancers. We can speak up for age-appropriate choreography. We can speak up for age-appropriate costumes. We can create age-appropriate choreography and select age-appropriate costumes and age-appropriate music. Age-appropriate music. No more suggestive music. We don't need that. We don't need that. And I think the biggest thing is just to use our voice to keep our kids safe, because you would rather have an abundance of safety than be sorry looking back on it. And once again, shock will never beat talent. Shock will never beat talent. Shock will never beat clean technique. Shock and sex and suggestiveness and scandal will never beat a clean dance with sharp technique that has a good story and a good performance. Which also leads me into this, like, whole other conversation with, I very much still think that this is happening. But I also want to lean into, I've talked a lot about the sexualization of women in dance, which is, it is a rapid problem, and it's something that I've experienced as a woman in dance, But there's also an inherent sexualization of men in dance, again, in competition dance. It was so often that, if you're in a big group dance and you have, like, one or two guys and, like, a bunch of women, the girls are in their costumes, whatever they look like, and then the boys will be in the same color pants as the girls' costumes, and they'll be bare-chested. And I remember that happening with, like, young kids, too. Or, like, a vest, like a Le Corsair type thing, like, just a vest, and then, like, bare chest underneath. And once again, I think, like, that's kind of the masculine equivalent of the bra top and briefs, that, like, sex sells type thing, but also in the way of speaking up for the sexualization of our men in dance, or our male presenting dancers. Are they comfortable with what they're wearing? Are they comfortable with that much skin being shown? Is it age appropriate for them to be shirtless on stage? I mean, that's a whole other conversation about, like, men and women being shirtless on stage is a whole other thing. But, like, are they comfortable with that? Is that something that is age appropriate for them? Does it serve the dance and the story and the costume? Would it change if he had a white top on with those blue pants to match the girls' blue dresses? And that was something I think is also going away, or at least shifting to just continuing with the more senior dancers, which is fine. If you're 16, 17, 18, I think that you have a grasp on who you are and what makes you comfortable, but I'm talking, like, young teen, young kids, like, they don't know, and they don't know what they're insinuating, and they don't know what is or isn't comfortable because they've never experienced something like that. And I think that as educators, just standing up for the kids, our students, our children, standing up for them and their costumes and their music and their choreography is the only way to help make the dance competition world go further, be safer, be a more positive environment and safer for our children. Which then brings me, I didn't realize I had this much, I knew I had this much to say, but, like, this is kind of a lot. Which then brings me to the idea of the sexualization of dance majors. We talked about young kids, and now I want to talk about the sexualization of dance majors. And, this could just be a greater commentary on the world that we live in, but it is something that I've really genuinely noticed. And it kind of ties back to that, like, why, when we look at Balletcore, why is it so focused on young children? And I think that it is because the general perception of ballet is that it is a little girl's thing. You know, I've said it a million times and I will die on this hill, every Midwest mom puts her daughter in baby ballet, and you know she does. If you had a Midwest mom, you were in baby ballet, and if you're listening to this podcast, I bet you started in baby ballet. Maybe you didn't, but if you're a dancer listening to this podcast, I bet your Midwest mom put you in baby ballet, you know, and it's this kind of public perception that dancing is like a little girl's thing, or it's something you'll grow out of. You know, every little girl wants to be a ballerina, but then, like, if you meet me, I'm a 20-something that is literally in this to be a ballerina, you know, and I see this the most when I tell people I don't know that, oh, I'm a dancer, I'm a dance major. This really vivid example comes to my mind. We were at, my best friend Caroline and I were at this comedy club that we go to all the time, and we love this comedy club, and sometimes when you're in, like, a small group, like just a pair of you, they might sit you at a four-top with, like, a different couple, and you just kind of meet new friends and all watch the comedy show together. It's great. It's awesome. We were sat with these two guys, and they were, like, friends, whatever, and we're all just kind of chatting, getting to know each other before the show started, and they're like, oh, what do you guys do? And we're like, oh, we're dancers. And they kind of look at each other and, like, really look at us, and he goes, where? And one of them was like, oh, where are you dancers at? We were like, oh, we're, like, dance majors at Missouri State. And he was kind of taken aback, and he's like, oh, I thought you meant you were, like, exotic dancers, like you were, like, strippers. He was asking us which club we stripped at. And you know, and there was another time that, like, comedians love to joke about dance majors, and I love sitting in the front because I love a good, like, if a comedian's gonna joke around, I want to be the target. I think it's so funny. I'll joke right back, you know, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be a professional dancer. He's like, oh, you're gonna be a stripper? No. Or, you know, like, I teach dance to put myself through school, and he's like, do you strip to put yourself through school? No. Low-key, some days I think about it, but I don't. And it's like, a lucrative business opportunity here. There's a strip club here in town, and it was, like, hiring, and all of our friends were like, dude, we're about to get some money. None of us started stripping, for the record. None of us strip, but it is really funny every now and again that we're like, get that bag, sis. Pay for that. Education is expensive. Don't start stripping, though. Anyways. I mean, do what you want with your body, but, like, I will not start stripping. But this, like, public perception, especially from men, that, like, if you meet a adult woman that is dancing, the immediate perception is that, oh, they're stripping. It's, like, an inherently sexual thing. But then I'm like, no, I'm, like, doing this as a job. Like, I'm gonna be on a stage, like, at a concert, like a concert dancer, or on Broadway or something. And I know that's kind of a greater conversation about why I think Balletcore skews so young. Because you're never going to ask a little girl oh, I'm going to dance. Yeah, she's going to ballet class because she's 5. You know what I mean? But then you meet a 20-something and you're like, oh, I'm going to dance. You're like, what? You're going to dance? You know, and I think that shifting the general perception, again, of dancing is never going... It's not going to happen overnight, and it won't. I mean, nothing will happen overnight, but I think there's the general lack of, I mean, this could stem so far back. I think that the general idea of, like, an adult woman dancing or training in dance is, you know, the mind goes to stripping because I think there is such, like, a societal lack of respect for art as a career path. And, you know, I've heard it a million times from my family, and I will probably hear it for the rest of my life. The world is an efficient world. You know, you want people to do the most work for the least amount of money to make the company the most money, and art in the current state that we live in isn't super viable. I mean, if it was my world, the artist would be on top because you can't survive without art. And I've said this 1,000,001 times to anyone that will listen. I will scream this from the rooftop, but art is so viable and so important and such a legitimate career path. And a lot of people just don't see it that way, and therefore their vision of an adult dancer is an exotic dancer, is a stripper. They don't ever really consider the professional ballet companies. They don't consider Broadway. They don't consider the dancers on cruise ships or at amusement parks or on TV or in movies, even though that's that's the dancing that most people consume: movies, music video, TV shows. That's not just like a one-off gig. This is this is like that person's livelihood. And not to say that stripping is not a real job, a valid job. If you are performing and you feel safe and you feel secure in your choices, live your life, girl. Get that bag. Like, I support you. But in the form of dance as an art form, as a career, I think it's so looked down upon, even though if it was gone, I think that anyone, regardless of your view on art, I think that anyone would notice that it was gone. You know what I mean? I think that, even something as commercialized as the Super Bowl halftime show, that's a stage full of professional dancers who make this their life. All they do is perform. They perform, maybe they have survival jobs, but like in a perfect world, they perform all the time. And can you imagine a Super Bowl halftime show without any dancers? Can you imagine smash hits like La La Land without any dancing? Big movies, Barbie without any dancing? You cannot imagine the biggest movie of last year without dancing, because it's an important thing in people's lives. And I don't even think they realize it. So then there is that like inherent sexualization of it, because why would an adult be dancing? That's a child's thing. You grow out of that when you're 16 and you go on to become an accountant or a doctor or a scientist or an insurance broker or, a banker, whatever, like a nurse, whatever. Like, there's like that jump, whereas like it's so mind-boggling to people, especially here in Missouri, that like, oh, you're doing this art thing for real. And I'm like, yeah, I am. And like all of my friends are, and we're all like very committed to this, and we're very talented, and we take our jobs very seriously, and we're like gonna make this happen for ourselves. And I would only imagine, you go to larger cities, you go to your New Yorks or your LAs, and I feel like it could be a little bit different. Maybe it's not, but I feel like in my heart it's a little bit different. Whenever I've been in New York and I've told people I'm a dancer, they're like, oh, what have I seen you in? Have I seen you on Broadway? Have I seen you in a movie? Have I seen you in a play? Not where do you dance, as in which club down the road can I come watch you take your clothes off at? You know what I mean? And I think it's just a commentary on where we are at as a society in our relationship to art professionally, especially as professional women in the arts. We have to stand up for ourselves, and we have to really make a point to defend ourselves in a way that, a lot of other career paths don't have to defend themselves. And that is a skill that I'm very quickly gaining, to be confident in the fact that I'm doing this as a career, and to very boldly but very boldly push away the idea of a sexualization of my career, a sexualization of my students, a sexualization of who I was as a child. I look back on the dances that I did, and I am shocked that my parents let me go on stage like that, but I also think at the same time, they're not dance parents. I was the only kid that really danced seriously, and they didn't know any better. And all of these other kids were doing it, and every other dance at the competition was like this. And I think nowadays there's more of a conversation about, like, what are our children doing on stage? How does this look? What is this saying? And I think we are shying away from that, and we are turning away from the, like, inherent sexualization of children, which is great, and obviously the direction that we need to be moving in. But I think, like, back then, none of us knew. And now with, like, this increased technology and increased social media and all these good things, we're able to look at it and be like, okay, that's wrong, that's bad, that's sending the wrong message. Again, you never know who's in the audience, you never know who's online, you never know who's truly following you. And just to be mindful of the situations that we are putting our children in, our dancers in, or putting ourselves in, the way that we stand up for our careers and we stand up for the art form that we love, and we keep it a safe place for people of all shapes, sizes, genders, all kinds of, we just keep it a safe place for everyone. That way that arts education can flourish and become a longer lasting and work back up to a point in our society where it is, cherished and appreciated and maybe taken a little more seriously by the time that, like, the students I teach are adults and potentially pursuing this for their lives. And I hope that with every little step each year, which every little fashion change that we make, perhaps, we get a little further from the hypersexualization of children in dance, as well as the hypersexualization of women in all forms of dance. And with that, I think that's all I have left to say for the episode. I'm going to leave you with a recommendation, I think. I didn't leave you with a recommendation last week, and I didn't realize that till after I filmed the episode, so I'm just going to ignore that. So maybe I'll leave you with two recommendations. I'll leave you with a song recommendation and a show recommendation. Song recommendation is an oldie but a goodie. I've been bopping to Cecilia and the Satellite by Andrew McMahon, McMahon, in the Wilderness. Cecilia and the Satellite by Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness. Great band name, by the way. An oldie but a goodie, like 2015. I heard it for the first time in a long time, and just brought me so back. Like, it brought me so far back. I was like, dude, yes. And then I will leave you with a show recommendation. Go watch The Bear on Hulu if you haven't already. By the time you are hearing this, season 3 will have been out. And it's just so good, dude. It's so good. If you haven't seen The Bear, go watch it. The Bear is one of the best pieces of television I've seen in a really long time. I could talk about it all day. The female characters in The Bear are so beautifully written, and they are so three-dimensional, and I could have an entire episode about The Bear. I really could. So go watch The Bear, go listen to Cecilia and the Satellite. Thank you for listening to this episode, and I'll see you all in the next one. Merit and a kiss. Mwah.